Hi and welcome to SCW, the wrestling channel here on YouTube.com. Thank you for choosing the channel and choosing the video. Please subscribe right now. Leave any comments in the comment section. Please like and share the video as well. Ask SCW is back once again answering your questions in the wrestling community. Got your questions today from Twitter.com as well as Instagram. You can also follow me on Facebook. Options should be coming up on your screen right now. Leave the hashtag AskSCW. Get your question in for the next show. You can even drop a comment here on YouTube. Without further ado, let's get our first question this week. And our first question this week comes from the controversial one, Jamie Holmes. There has been dissension recently between Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross. If one was to turn heel, who do you think it would be? Such a great question to kick off this week. In fact, it's so perfectly. All the pieces have been put in place. It could literally go either way. If you look at the SmackDown Women's Championship picture, Nikki Cross is currently obsessed. She was offered another way in to have another match for the championship if she would defeat her best friend, the person that's looked after her so far on the main roster in Alexa Bliss, and she didn't hesitate. She shoved her to the ground immediately. We had a one-on match between the two, a lengthy match as well. You wouldn't say it was a five-star classic, but I tell you what, both women told the story very, very well, and I liked how the match was portrayed and how it was delivered. And it did make you think as well, with the roll-up, the way it was done, that this wouldn't be the last time that these two would face each other, and it makes me believe that we will get another match between these two. Like you said, the key question is, what way is it going to go? Alexa Bliss lost to her best friend, and perhaps maybe is a little bit jealousy creeping in. Maybe she feels her time has been and gone, and maybe Nikki Cross now is getting the opportunities that she feels maybe she should be getting. Maybe she should be the one. But Nikki Cross, on the other hand, could be someone that could lose next week and just go completely insane and turn on Alexa Bliss. It would in one way be a nice change of pace for Nikki Cross to be the one to turn heel, but I'm going to make the prediction, and perhaps the more obvious route, I think Alexa Bliss here turns on Nikki Cross, because everyone wants Nikki Cross to be the SmackDown Women's Champion. They want to see her go for that championship. Everyone is right behind her. Alexa Bliss arguably does her best work as a heel, and what better than have the jealousy factor, and really should be in the right. You turned on me. You pushed me to the ground. You wanted the match with me. I've just stood by your side. We've gone for the Women's Tag Team Championships. I've put my career on hold for you, and we could chase a dream together. Instead, now it's time for me to go back in and do what I do best. I'm a former five-time Women's Champion, and I'm going to go back for the SmackDown Women's Championship. It makes perfect sense for a storyline. We thought these two would probably have a rivalry at some point last year. They've managed to ride through the way for a long time, Nikki Cross and Alexa Bliss, made a very good, mix and match tag team, and they've really done, bonded a great friendship, and they've done well over the previous year as a partnership. But now, perhaps the timing is right. Maybe they've done all they can. We've seen them in the tag team division. They've had two reigns for the tag team championships. I can't really see where they go from here as a duo. So yeah, I think the timing is right. I'm going to go for Alexa Bliss to be the one to turn heel and the one to turn on Nikki Cross, and I think it gives a natural progression for the feud, and perhaps even a match at SummerSlam, which I think would be great for both ladies. Next question comes from the hard-hitting wrestling show. Big E is going solo for the next 2 months. Should Big E stay on SmackDown and chase the Universal title, or move to Raw and challenge Drew McIntyre? Interesting question, that one, because, I mean, of course, Big E, like you say, the next couple of months, definitely the next 6 weeks. Kofi is out, Xavier's been long-term out. Big E is going to be going solo. He's got the support of the New Day, and he's going to be going for single success. What happens when Kofi comes back? I mean, it's only 6 weeks, or like you say, a couple of months. But now, I know what a lot of people are thinking, well, that's enough time for Vince McMahon to have one of his 3 pushes and pull the rug in that meantime. But at the same time, I think that we could perhaps get in the start of a long-term storyline here. Now, if Big E was to chase one of the main championships, I think we need a longer-term storyline. We've got so many key main eventers in place, but I don't see how Big E would win the championship so soon. You look at the Raw side, we've got Drew McIntyre, arguably probably going to be Randy Orton going for that championship at SummerSlam. I just can't see Big E beating either of those two at this point. And same with SmackDown. If the Fiend wins at SummerSlam, it would be weird for Big E to win the belt straight away. I think you need to build a longer term storyline here for Big E if he wants to go into the main event picture. I think if you can build him up well up until Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, I think it's possible. We have seen in previous times where people get these 6 weeks pushes and they get themselves a title match at a pay-per-view, but I do feel that it would be a bit sudden, and I think this is sometimes a bit of the problem with WWE. They just, when they decide they're going to go with something, they go for it and don't really think about what they've done previously. Big E's been in a tag team for, the last 6 years. He's not really done a lot of singles action. Yes, he's, the muscle of the group. But I'd like to see Big E kind of build himself and build some momentum. I think the right move right now would be to go for the Intercontinental Championship. Him versus AJ Styles, which would be a solid match for SummerSlam, I think would really work. So that would be the direction I would go for. And let's see Big E get some steady singles success. I think that would be an interesting move if they were to go down that route. But time will tell what will happen. But I think for myself and a lot of the wrestling community, we want to see Big E go to that next level. And hopefully this is going to be a starting path of what leads him to success and perhaps multiple title reigns down the line over the next few years. Keeping things on the subject of Big E, Austin Whitley is with our next question now. Hopefully I can fit my question in on time. Well, yes, you're here, and you're here now on AskSCW. With Big E getting the singles run, how do you feel about a New Day triple threat at WrestleMania 37? Well, it's going to happen at some point, hasn't it? I mean, every team, and we discussed this actually on This Week in Wrestling this past week with James, of course, who's part of sometimes here on SCW, and also he has his own podcast, This Week in Metropolis. Go and check it out now if you haven't already, and that podcast is actually available on the channel as of yesterday. But we discussed the idea that every tag team usually ends up facing each other at some point. There's usually a breakup storyline, and the key here is that the New Day, I think that it's something that needs to be done at some point. At WrestleMania 37 for me would feel like a big occasion and would feel kind of worthy of having these guys in a triple threat match. And probably by this point, Xavier Woods would probably be back in the mix as well. What would be interesting is that there's lots of different ways to look at this. I mean, Kofi and Xavier, they said they're behind Big E. They said as well that they believe with Big E that they have faith in him and that they trust what he will be doing going forward. What if Big E was to be a bit heelish? What if Big E was to be a little bit different on his own? Maybe he has his way of the team of the New Day, but if he's let loose on his own, he actually becomes a bit more of a heelish, a devilish character, and it's sparks question marks in Kofi, who says to himself, well, hang on, this isn't the way that the New Day does things. Maybe it creates a bit of a rivalry between those two. And maybe Xavier Woods comes in back as a heel. Maybe he comes back as the hacker. Maybe that storyline is set in stone after all. Who knows? Maybe it's just a setback that the hacker thing hasn't been announced. But you look at it and say that I think it would be quite fun to have a triple threat match with these guys at WrestleMania. To flip things further from Kofi's conversation with Big E as well, what if Big E does get the success, but Kofi is the one that actually gets jealous? I mean, you have to remember, Kofi Mania was fantastic, it was successful, but what's Kofi done for me lately? He's not done a lot in the last sort of few months. He's gone back into that tag team routine that he was with the New Day. He didn't chase the championship after he lost it with Brock Lesnar. We seemed quite happy, quite content. And we did have a couple of moments where Kofi was almost flitting between face and heel at that point when SmackDown first went on Fox, and it kind of got dropped. What if they were to revisit it with this storyline going forward now? There's a lot of intrigue, there's a lot of buzz, something about this with Big E going solo. And yeah, I think it could spark the end of the New Day. I mean, the act, you could argue, has got a little bit stale. Where can they go from here? Do they all go heel again? Maybe that'll be something fresh, something different. Or maybe, just maybe, they go their separate ways for a little while. They can always reunite a couple of years down the line if storylines and the stars align. Maybe they all become much more successful on the main roster at this point by breaking up. Maybe Kofi can become that successful face or heel, and Big E vice versa, and they both get the success rate. At this point, if you ask me, maybe Big E should be the face. It feels everyone would be massively on side of Big E and what he would be doing, and maybe Kofi should be the one to experiment going heel on his own. Maybe it would be interesting, something different for Kofi's character. And Xavier, when he comes back in the mix, who knows, but certainly it could be fun. Maybe he just wants to bring the band back together, but he can't do it, and it's gone too far, and Xavier ends up falling out with both of them as well, and it leads to the triple threat. I think there's a lot of different twists and turns you can do, and I think it would be a great match for WrestleMania next year. And you never know, maybe this match as well, depending on how the championship reigns go around the time, maybe that could be your championship match. Never say never. Derek Stark, the Ego Maniac, is with us next now here on AskSCW, asking again about how Big E's solo run will go. Do you think he'll finally get the WWE title like he rightfully should? And also asking about AEW. Will they sign any of the talent that faced Cody for the TNT Championship? Well, we've touched on Big E already a little bit there, but just to give a little bit something more, I do think that there could be a chance for him to get into the WWE Championship picture, or certainly the Universal Championship picture. Just to be clear, for me, he should stay on SmackDown. I don't see why he should go to Raw. SmackDown right now for me, is lacking some talent in the main event scene, and perhaps that breakup of the New Day would be the perfect way to elevate both Big E and Kofi over time. Maybe a build of a few months it would work, but like I said, I do think that Big E right now will be best suited going for the IC title. I do think that's right now, and maybe through the storyline telling and solo success that maybe he may get going forward over the next few months, maybe then you can push him in the title reign. I want new stars built, and I think the best way to build a new star is to give them momentum over a number of months. And then, I mean, with someone like Big E right now, who's just sort of started, he gets the buzz, he gets that sort of push. If he can get some big wins behind him, I don't see why in 3 or 4 months he couldn't be in and around that championship picture. As for AEW, well, I mean, we look at it, I mean, Ricky Starks has already been signed. Eddie Kingston, as of recording, has not been signed yet by AEW, but I think, to be honest, he made a moment. He didn't just take an opportunity, he made his opportunity. He made a moment on AEW Dynamite this past week. His promo was fantastic, his match was awesome, and personally for me, it would be foolish not to have him back on Dynamite. I do believe they're going to work with Eddie Kingston once again. The question is, I mean, we've got another one coming in this next week. I believe Warhorse is going to be the competitor this week coming up, and you do say to yourself, well, looking at it, you can't sign everybody. I mean, what if we have 20 people coming from outside from different companies? You can't sign everybody, but the first couple, I think, will get the success if they hit the ball and knock it out the park like they've done the first couple. I don't see why the first few wouldn't be signed up, but eventually it does come to a point where you probably can't sign everybody. So I think AEW need to make sure that they find a purpose for each and every member of the roster when they come in and do this. Is there someone we can fit them in? Is there something that can benefit the brand going forward? Or is it just great as a one-off? Because, I mean, some of these are great as a one-off. I mean, what's the best feeling than some of us fans craving for some of these superstars to come in? And maybe we have to be a bit patient because there's just not that space on the roster right now. Dylan Ketchum with our next question. Who do you want to face Cody next week for the TNT Championship? Well, we've got Warhorse coming up for us this week, so that should be an exciting match. I don't know too much about Warhorse, so I'm looking forward to seeing what he's going to bring to the table. There's quite a bit of buzz going around with the indie scene, and it's quite nice to see some of the indie guys coming in. But I do like this idea of outsiders coming in, so for the next challenger for me, I've been craving for Zack Ryder, Matt Cardona, to come in, because, I mean, Cody is good friends with him and has said that he believes that he could get over once again like he did almost 10 years ago now, back in 2011. It seems crazy to think how long ago Ryder was the internet champion and really got that buzz on YouTube with his own series, and obviously then getting to where he was winning the championships in WWE, but of course completely buried them by John Cena and Kane in 2012. But I would really like to see him get his opportunity. Eli Drake could be another one I'd like to see as well. I mean, to be fair, Eli Drake, one of my favourites. He's a great talker. He's decent in the ring as well, and I just want to see him have that opportunity on a big stage, you know, and right now, no disrespect to NWA, I think that Eli Drake belongs on a bigger stage in front of a bigger audience than what he's currently performing at, and that's no disrespect to NWA. I do really enjoy Power, but there is a lot of rumours going on about NWA right now. We don't know when it's going to come back, we don't know what's going to happen, and Eli Drake, you know, say what you want, looking at his Twitter, looks like he's expressed interest of taking that open challenge. So yeah, I would be quite interested to see what he would bring to the table if he was to get a shot at the TNT Championship, and if maybe he was to even be with more than one appearance with AEW. Next question coming from Tire World Order. Eddie Kingston made his AEW debut this week. Should AEW sign him, or would that just not fit with who the Mad King is? Wednesday felt like he was out there fighting for indie wrestling as a whole, and it feels like he won. Obviously, my bias is for him to return to Impact. Well, after this week on AEW, you couldn't blame Eddie Kingston for wanting his future to be with All Elite Wrestling, to be a part of the Wednesday Night War. Like you say, and as we explained in an earlier question, he got his opportunity and he knocked it out of the park. AEW would be foolish to not use him going forward. I think he represents something completely different. He stands out from the pack of what AEW currently has, and I think that he would actually have a decent place within that roster. It'd be interesting to see how they would use him. Would they want his realness gimmick, or would he be someone who's been fighting, struggling to get that opportunity for so long that he's almost willing to do anything to get that opportunity in AEW? I'm thinking maybe the Dark Order, maybe they need a member like that, Eddie Kingston, someone who's willing to do anything to succeed. I think that also with credibility, Eddie Kingston would be a good member rather than just these random numbers of people that are about 150 pounds getting jobbed every single week. For me, that would be a storyline idea. You can also, like we say, go with the real side. I mean, we kind of got that gangster, that real side of someone that grew up, you know, with rough times behind him, and someone that is willing to and wanting to do everything to succeed, and could actually, even though he come in kind of a heelish kind of way, could even become a natural liked babyface because of the fact that he's so real. There's so much that Eddie Kingston could bring to the table, and I mean, I must admit, I've been a fan of Eddie Kingston, but this really opened my eyes and really saw a lot more of what Eddie Kingston could bring to the table. I think that this is the right place and the right opportunity. Could he deliver something to Impact Wrestling? I mean, Impact right now, they're on a roll. They have got momentum going with their side. I'm sure he could offer something going to their brand as well. But at the same time, he's been there. I'm not sure if he would get... It's hard to really suggest, really, but I just feel that he's had such a special moment with AEW to then go and just switch now to Impact Wrestling. I just don't think it'd have the same impact, no pun intended, of coming in and making a debut there after having such a great impact coming in on AEW. So for me, I think AEW would probably be his preference, and I think for me right now, I think that would be my first choice as well. I would like to see Eddie Kingston signed with AEW. I think that they could definitely do something with him, a part of their roster. Well, you mentioned Impact Wrestling, so let's get another question from Thai World Order. With Impact's scripted segments arguably being one of the strongest parts of the show, thanks to the acting talent of the roster, how excited are you for the frickin' Wrestle House? Well, I mean, yeah, I must admit, I have got a bit of a buzz about it. When it came on last week, a bit of me was thinking, well, let's see where this is going to go. We've got the sort of the start of the program with Rosemary and Johnny Bravo, Taya come in, and all of a sudden, when we start seeing all these other characters coming in, that's the thing, the whole thing about this Wrestle House, they're all characters. I mean, we've got Crazy Steve, we've got Johnny Swinger, we've got, you know, Susie, Kylie Ray, we've got all these different kind of bubbly characters that are going to be put in this one environment house, and it's almost a bit like a Big Brother kind of series, and for me, it does kind of seem like it's going to be quite cool. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to bring to the table. Are they going to vote someone out every single week? What's going to happen? Is it going to be like the Jersey Shore? We'll have to wait and see. It's going to be fun. It's going to be wacky. It could be wild. And ultimately, it's going to further that developing storyline as well with Rosemary, Taya Valkyrie, and of course Johnny Bravo. So yeah, I'm excited to see what they're going to bring. And I mean, it's just one of many reasons why you need to tune into Impact Wrestling this week. So yeah, bring it on. I'm looking forward to it. Noob and Co for us now on the way next down. We've got one more AEW question and we're moving back to WWE. What are your thoughts on the AEW Women's Tournament? We've also been asked if Shayna and Asuka does happen at SummerSlam, will Asuka's push end if she loses the Raw Women's Championship? And question number 3, which character or storylines are the best and worst in 2020 so far? Interesting questions there. Oh, a hatful of questions as well there. We'll start with AEW just to finish off AEW for the week. I think that the Women's Tag Team Tournament, I think, could be a big success. I really like the idea of it. I think it's going to elevate the Nightmare Sisters. I think that's one of the big purposes they wanted to do here with Brandy and Ali. They want to try and build the tag team wrestling. They've probably seen the success that perhaps we're starting to get with WWE. Impact seem to be throwing back as well with the tag teams division as well. Perhaps the Knockouts tag team titles have been discussed amongst the rumour mill. If this is successful with AEW, it gives them a chance to do something going forward. But the question here is that do they have enough women in their roster to make this tournament work? Well, here's the other successful thing. The women's division probably is arguably one of the weakest parts of AEW, so they've got a chance here to bring some new female and fresh blood to the table. Maybe, just maybe, they might find 3 or 4 new stars that they can bring and sign to AEW to strengthen up their product. Now, who they're going to bring in, we'll have to wait and see. Now, of course, the biggest names out there that I think that are free agents right now, Tessa Blanchard and Kelly Klein, that would be an unbelievable duo to bring in, and I think personally both of them would set the women's division alight if you were to have them in AEW. But I do think that it's definitely exciting times. I think ratings will tell if this will become a one and done thing or if we'll get this yearly. It would be cool if we got it yearly. I hope it's successful. I hope it works, and like I say, I mean, it gets more attention to the women's division. I mean, they have been improving with storylines, in my opinion, in recent times, but I still would like to see the women have more of a focal point on the show of Dynamite each and every week, and hopefully this will give that opportunity. I think that yeah, this tournament seems like a really good thing, so I really am hoping that it's going to be successful. As for Shayna Baszler and Asuka, well, if this match does happen at SummerSlam, as I predicted as well, another podcast that was done just a couple of days ago was with me and George. We did our NXT TakeOver predictions for the match card and SummerSlam as well. A few bold predictions in there, perhaps one or two already proving maybe they may or may not happen, but certainly a fun podcast to check out nonetheless if people haven't already, so go and check that out on the channel. It's already available. But we predicted this match will happen. It obviously depends what happens with tonight's Raw with Asuka and Sasha Banks. But what I'd say is, regardless of what happens with Asuka, if she loses tonight to Sasha or she loses at SummerSlam, I mean, I still think she'll be in the title picture at SummerSlam for sure, regardless. What happens beyond that, we'll have to wait and see. Now, everyone gets their turn eventually, whether they have the chance to be at the top of the card or towards the bottom. I would say that Asuka, though, she is, along with Bayley and Sasha, they've been carrying that division since Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair have not been around. So I would say that Asuka will definitely remain, a prominent role of women's wrestling in and amongst WWE. I don't see her, going to catering or anything like that. So I don't see a push disappearing entirely. So no, I expect whatever happens, Asuka will remain on TV. Will she be winning every week if she loses the championship? Then that's the question mark. Probably not. But I don't see, a loss of TV time, a derail of push. I think she'll still be in and around the mix. As for best and worst storylines of 2020 so far, now it's quite difficult because we've got so many great companies, and obviously if we look at storylines, they could be involved with wrestlers and companies. So I'll give a couple of ones that I've liked, and then I'll give my favourite. With AEW, I really liked just the build in general of Kenny Omega and Hangman Page. They've gone through the entire calendar year with this will they, won't they gel as a tag team, 2 singles wrestlers, and we still haven't got the culmination of that storyline, but it's built so nicely and so well that I do wonder where that's going to go. And we have even suggested on the latest podcast with myself and James and This Week in Wrestling, will Kenny Omega be the one to turn heel? Maybe it freshens up his character more. Hangman Page, so over as well. I loved their work they had as well with the Young Bucks when that tag team was going on, that tag team title match at Revolution, one of my favourite matches of the year. As a company, Impact Wrestling, as a storyline, just the tease and the build for Slammiversary alone was absolutely incredible, and I think deserves full praise. Was the most excited I was for any wrestling show for a long time, so really that stands out. But as an official storyline with 2 superstars, it has to be Edge and Randy Orton. I mean, Edge's return, the way Randy Orton's been on another level in 2020. He's gone back to the Viper that we knew of like a decade ago. It's almost been, where's this Randy Orton been for the last, 5-6 years, because I feel like Randy Orton's been flat in comparison to what we've seen in 2020. Randy Orton is ready to go back as WWE champion, and you wouldn't question it. He is in the top position right now. He's been top of his game, the best he's been for a long time. And I think if we had this Randy Orton consistently, goodness knows where he would have done his career. I think he would have easily broken those championship reigns of Ric Flair, John Cena by now, because this Randy Orton, he's untouchable. As for worst storyline of the year, well, I mean, there's probably been a number of them, to be honest. Maybe the ones that haven't happened. What happened to the Hacker storyline? We was enjoying that. But I mean, I'm going to go with one that I just really didn't enjoy from start to finish, and that has to be Braun Strowman versus The Miz and John Morrison. I just detested it from the start. The way that Miz and Morrison have been, they've been given some awful material to work with. They're decent promos, and they do the best of what they're given, but sometimes the stuff they're given is awful, and this particular with Braun Strowman, it was never believable either that either of them would actually beat Braun Strowman. And Braun Strowman's a face as well. It's just bland and boring for me. I've said it many weeks. I'm going to say it one more week. I want my monster back. Speaking of monsters in their own right, we've got the hard-hitting wrestling show asking if I could see this happening. Jeff Hardy against the Fiend. Well, do you know what? We sort of have this brother Nero character, which is what goes into described in the article. So do go and check out the hard-hitting wrestling show. Great articles they put out there. They do great YouTube content as well. So give them a plug and a shout out right here, right now. But in the article was suggested about the idea of brother Nero coming in, maybe building towards something, maybe even WrestleMania against the Fiend. I think that certainly this could happen even in the nearer future. If Jeff Hardy's going to go with this darker character, whether it's brother Nero, God forbid if it's Willow. I hope it's not Willow. I really didn't enjoy that Impact character. But if we get this darker side of Jeff Hardy, certainly could be something interesting and something different. And the Fiend needs someone to face after SummerSlam or perhaps after Hell in a Cell. I imagine we might get another month out of the Fiend and Braun Strowman. But after that, the Fiend needs a new direction to go, and there isn't so many people that he could face. We've talked about Big E earlier in the video, but Jeff Hardy, for me, is someone that is established and someone that could just fit nicely in, someone the Fiend hasn't faced, and with the darkness of those two characters, I think could make to an interesting, compelling storyline. So I wouldn't be surprised to see it happen. Interesting as well, if the dark side of Brother Nero actually was able to be, if you want, brainwashed, you know, and even part of a stable with the Fiend. I mean, I wouldn't rule anything out like that either, but I think more likely I would see them facing each other. And yeah, I think it's something that we could perhaps, rather than WrestleMania, I think it's something we could get into the winter season. I wouldn't be surprised to see that feud, that rivalry. It gets Jeff Hardy back in the championship picture as well, something he's not been for a long, long time. And after his, you know, arguably enjoyable bar brawl. I enjoyed the bar brawl on SmackDown with Sheamus. Hopefully that chapter's finished, and Jeff Hardy, he needs to move on to something different now, in my opinion, and maybe the Fiend will be his next target. We'll have to wait and see after SummerSlam. Maybe we could get this few weeks of developing this darker Jeff Hardy character, and then perhaps after that we get him versus the Fiend. I'd look forward to seeing it. I'm sure you guys would as well. I think there's money written in that match. Dan the Man Williams, who's also got his YouTube channel just set up, DWE. Go and check it out right now. I believe a video should be coming up hopefully imminently. But yeah, brand new YouTube channel, going to be talking about professional wrestling. Go and check it out. Give him support, give him a subscribe when he gets a video up there. Go and check it out. Dan the Man Williams has got DWE starting here on YouTube. Asking a question this week, who could you see Bray Wyatt feuding with if he wins the title, presumably at SummerSlam, and the same for Strowman after feuding with The Fiend? Well, I expect them to face each other probably again. We've got Hell in a Cell, I believe, coming up after SummerSlam, providing they don't change that. Could you imagine Hell in a Cell, by the way, in an empty performance centre? I don't know how I feel about that. Maybe they should change it this year. Maybe Halloween Havoc, anybody? I'd love to see Halloween Havoc come back as a pay-per-view, and I think would actually be quite fitting as well, especially with The Fiend as the guy there, and you've got the Monster Strowman. I think that WWE, come on, as a petition, start it right now. Let's bring back Halloween Havoc, replace Hell in a Cell, especially at least for 1 year, if we've not got fans back by October, or definitely by the end of September, depending on when they're going to do that pay-per-view. But I do expect them to have one more one and done. Perhaps it's the Hell in a Cell match, maybe a last man standing match, maybe something just to finish the feud off with those two. You can't see Strowman not getting a rematch, but after that, where do they go from here? We touched earlier in the video, perhaps Bray Wyatt, maybe Big E could be one, Jeff Hardy could be one. I think that Jeff Hardy would be my selection as the first choice there. As for Strowman, what happens? Does he get influenced after his rivalry with The Fiend? A lot of people have changed something after this. He ended up in the swamp as well. Do we get a darker Strowman? Do I finally get my monster back? Maybe he turns heel. Maybe he goes against Big E. Maybe he goes for Otis. That could be quite interesting as well. Tries to go and get the briefcase off of Otis. If he stays babyface, maybe Sheamus could be someone likely as well. There's different options, different potentials. But if I had to put money on it, I would say probably Sheamus for Strowman, and I would go Jeff Hardy for The Fiend. Next question coming from our good friend Straight Edge Josh, who's on YouTube, by the way. Check out Straight Edge Josh, and he's actually done the intro for this video. So go and check out Straight Edge Josh right now. Give him a subscribe on his YouTube. Lots of custom Titantrons and themes as well. Definitely go and check out Straight Edge Josh. Asking this week, do you think Bruiser Brody deserves a Hall of Fame induction? Well, funnily enough, actually Bruiser Brody was included in the Legacy wing of Superstars. There was 10 Superstars announced for the 2019 class. Bruiser Brody was a part of that class, along the likes of Special Delivery Jones, as well as Luna Vachon, other superstars in the category as well. I think it was a no-brainer that Bruiser Brody is part of the Hall of Fame, personally. He's influenced so many people and taken well before his time. Such a tragedy will happen with Bruiser Brody. Who knows what he would have gone on to continue to do in the wrestling business. Definitely a big popular star who influenced the likes of Mick Foley in his career, and many others as well. So yeah, I mean, it's a no-brainer for him to be in and amongst the Hall of Fame in the Legacy wing, and yeah, I think well-deserved. Bruiser Brody, even part of the action figures as well with WWE. I see that they released one of Bruiser Brody just recently. My good friend Mervin is here with our next question here on AskSCW. Mr. 1925 asks, do you think that another reason from playing hot potato that World Championship belts are not as reserved as they once were because they are, well, ugly? The belts of the past, like the Big Gold and the Winged Eagle, were beautiful trophies that were wrestlers and fans like adored, and understandably would have fought to have the last breath to win. Whereas today, the belts, just with the big WWE logos and leather, I don't see the incentive for a wrestler to want to fight to win those. Well, let's start off by talking about actually those championships, the big gold belt and the winged eagle belt. I mean, literally, those championships, like you say, they were special. They meant something, and for us as well, we grew up with those belts and they were nostalgic. And I'd love to see those sort of designs come back. I think it is time that those sort of championships, like you say, the leather with just the WWE logo, it is time for them to be updated and perhaps go for maybe more of a retro look. I mean, we've changed perhaps belts recently that perhaps didn't need the touch-up. I don't think the IC title and the United States Championship needed those touch-ups, and personally, I do think they're slightly downgraded to what they actually were before, which isn't really a great sign. But when you look at the championships, I mean, I think it's wrong to say that superstars are not after those championships. They should want to represent the company. I think there are a number of superstars that are in there that have got the right drive, that are going there and trying to push themselves to the top. I do think there are some superstars that are just happy to be in WWE, and I think that those ones are the ones that are probably taking up the wrong sort of space. You should have people constantly driving, pushing themselves to get towards the top of the card. But we don't know what goes on behind the curtain. I'm sure there are superstars that are trying to push to try and get those moments. People stuck in catering maybe don't want to be there. I mean, you talk about Eric Young. He had a great interview this past week and said if you can't find 5 minutes on your 3-hour TV show, then something's wrong with your product. You must be able to find something for me to do while I'm there. And you only have to look at Impact Wrestling, the world-class maniac that Eric Young has come back and instantly reminded us what a great superstar he is and how misused he's been over the last number of years in WWE. Are there some superstars that probably feel entitled rather than actually just push themselves to get to that spot? I think there is a few of them in there as well, and I'm not so much of a fan of those people that are entitled, if you want. But I do feel that we need to see superstars just try and push themselves and elevate themselves and get themselves over. Is it a creative problem? Is it a superstars problem? I'm not sure. Is it the questions of the championships? I'm not so sure on that particular one, if I'm being brutally honest. I would say that although those designs aren't the nicest, imagine a superstar, let's say in NXT, Adam Cole, Keith Lee. I don't think they'd have any problem going to WWE, carrying that WWE Championship and, wearing it with pride and, carrying the company forward as it should be. Superstars like that who are the vision of what the company should be going forward, where you see some of the superstars that unfortunately have been horrendously booked, and that's what probably keeps them away from having credibility of trying to get to that championship picture. Either that or they get the rug pulled without beneath them when they feel that they're just about to get to that point as well, which has been done one too many times, whether it's Vince or whether it's Kevin Dunn or whoever's in charge of the pushing and pulling of the pushes. So it's hard to really give a good answer for that, but what I would say is that when it comes to those beautiful belts you've just described, I'd love to see them come back and make a comeback in some format. I think it would be great to have them as your main championships. Does it hinder superstars though? I wouldn't say so, and if there are superstars that are bothered by how the belts look and that's the reason they're not giving their all, then in my opinion they don't deserve to be there personally. I want to see people that are driven and want to push themselves and get themselves to the top. I think we've got superstars that are like that there. I want to see less of the entitled, prove that you're worth, and I want to see the people that are stuck in catering finding their way out of catering back on our TV screens and showing what they can do. I want to see WWE give the best product possible, and sometimes I think that they give a decent account of what they've got, but I always believe that they could do better, and maybe I need to do a separate video on that, but I certainly believe that there are ways that WWE can get back to pushing things back in the right direction, especially when we finally can get out of the pandemic and we can get fans back in the arenas. I think the shake-up is really needed, and yeah, I will do a separate video this week on that, and I will deliver that here on AskSCW. Last question this week is coming from Mike, Italian Habs Mike, and it's two questions. First, since Io Shirai became NXT Women's Champion, do you think it has made the women's division more interesting? And of course, Io Shirai versus Tegan Nox was one of the best women's matches all year. Do you think it made Tegan into a bigger star? Well, let's touch on Tegan first. I mean, it can't hurt you, can it? You have an NXT main event to have, that big moment, a championship match, and it was a solid match, like I say, between the two women. I don't see how this can't not elevate her. The only thing that I think that Tegan needs more is I think that this would have been perfect if it had been on a takeover in front of all them fans. I think that that's the big breakout moment that Tegan will need to really get to that next level. But as for going up a level to where she was, she certainly has, and she's on her way to getting somewhere good. Another person that is alongside her that's getting that sort of rub as well during this 2020 is Dakota Kai, and I'm so pleased that she's, brought the kick out and give it a nice boot in the face to Io Shirai. It looks like hopefully we could build, and she could be about to get a takeover championship match, a takeover moment, a takeover 30, and that really could push her to that next level. I do think that the Women's Championship scene has got more interesting, purely because of the fact that when Charlotte Flair won that belt, I figured that we were going to get a storyline direction, and I felt that we were going to have where Charlotte, yes, was going to go through some of the members of the roster. It was going to hopefully improve ratings, and there was a purpose of beating the people from the past, beating the present, beating the future, and then that person from the future who beat Charlotte Flair was going to get that big rub. We didn't really get that. Charlotte lost in the triple threat match. She wasn't the one to take the fall. She's now out of TV for, well, the foreseeable future. So it kind of really ruined the buzz, and the biggest buzz we had before that was when Rhea Ripley won the championship, but then it felt like Rhea just become a happy-go-lucky person with the championship. It felt like everything that she'd represented had lost meaning once she won the championship. So we need to see Rhea get that fire back, and I think we can push her back up. But with Io with the belt, Io is just a special person. She's such a great competitor. She's arguably, for me, the best female wrestler in the world. In ring, everything she does is just absolute perfection. I just love how angry she gets when she gives those sort of promos of like, it's my division now. I'm really a big fan of Io Shirai, and I think that she is definitely taking this NXT Women's Championship now to another level once again. And I look forward to what we're going to get going forward with these women, because like we say, we've got so many talented women down there. Candice LeRae, another one there. Toni Storm, we've not seen or heard of her for a long time. Be interested to see when she comes back into the picture as well. There's so many great women in the NXT roster that could make that title so special. And as always, NXT, they know how to deliver, and I think, yeah, it's going to continue to go places. Hopefully, like I say, Tegan Nox will get her big push on the takeover at some point, but it looks to be Dakota's turn right now. And I think NXT TakeOver 30, I think we can see a special match between Dakota Kai and as well Io Shirai. But that's all from me anyway this week on AskSCW. Hope you enjoyed as always. Make sure to also give us a like, subscribe if you've not subscribed already. Do share with a friend as well. Spread the word of SCW. We've got 2 podcasts that have been out over the weekend as well, Friday and yesterday. I'll give you a break for a couple of days, and I'll drop another video later in the week. Probably be relating to WWE, and I'm probably going to give an idea of something maybe I feel with the company, how they could push things going forward when fans come back, how they can bring the ratings back, and what I think they need to do to just get back on track, really. Because I do think that it feels to me that some interest has dropped from WWE in 2020, and a lot of people wonder what's the best ways to do it. I've got an idea in mind, and I'm going to share it with you later this week. But that's all from me anyway. Thank you for watching, and hope you've enjoyed it as always, and have yourselves a great day. I'll see you next time here on SCW. Take care.